I'm going to go for Tommy. Tommy's in Oregon, no pronouns given. He wants to talk about the historical context of the infallibility of the Bible. Tommy, you're on Talk Heathen. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm
Doing
freaking
pretty
awesome,
well. I'm
man.
excited to talk to an Oregonian from Oregon.
Yeah. So I just quick background. I'm currently in school. I'm studying psychology and religious studies. And in my free time, I like to just study theology and specifically Christianity. So I saw the prompt in the comments for the infallibility of the Bible.
Okay.
So, I guess where I want to start is, I think that that conversation, I think a lot of people forget really the 2,000 years, but especially the last 1,000 years of history that has molded American Christianity into what it is, right? So up until the Protestant Reformation, the authority in the faith was not the Bible. It was the papal authority, because no one could read
That does make it hard.
the Bible.
Yeah. They also burned people at the
And,
stake for owning a Bible in the language that they could read for a while. Yeah.
And there wasn't really a printing
Right,
press.
and not many people could read in general. So after Luther did his, big public scene, and we got the split, there was kind of now a hole for Protestants in their faith, because they were like, well, we don't have the authority of the Pope anymore, or of the Church. So the Luther kind of bunkered down on this idea of, well, that's because the Scripture is the authority. We're not going to listen to man. We're going to listen to God, and the best way we can do that is through the Bible. And throughout the next, up till the 21st century, and as we got all these new branches of Protestantism, from Calvin with the Reformed theology, and all the way to, Latter-day Saints, we got to this point where the Bible became basically like the Quran. Like it might as well have fallen out of the sky. And I think especially nowadays with the 20th century, good examples like the Scopes Monkey trial, where fundamentalists had to really start to kind of make a choice. And I think people started going to the extremes, and I think that's why we now have this issue of kind of this infallibility part of American Christianity, which unfortunately I think...
So to be clear, you do not think that the Bible is infallible?
No.
Okay.
So what is are you sort of just giving a summary, or do you have a point of view on this?
So for me, with my beliefs, I believe that, well, maybe not belief, but I would consider myself a follower of Christ. And I don't see the Bible as infallible, but I think that it is a book packed full of information that is 100% useful. And if you can learn to kind of dissect it and understand it properly, I think that it has a lot of messages that are very, very beneficial for humans.
So what about the messages that are definitely not very beneficial for humans? Because it has a lot of those too. So like how should we then pick through this, and how should the layman, the average everyday person, decide which parts they should believe and follow, and which parts have been corrupted through history, and which parts shouldn't have ever been there in the first place, and like how should an average person deal with this book?
So I think that if someone's looking to be a Christian, and their ultimate goal is to follow Jesus, starting with the Gospels, I'd probably say Mark is your, Mark or Luke. Those are going to be your best bets, and doing a bit of work on trying to understand the anthropological historical context of those accounts and the communities that they were being written to, and then kind of you can work through the New Testament. But in terms of the Old Testament, I would say find a good scholar that if you have those questions and if you want to explore that stuff, you can kind of look at their work. I don't think it would be fair to ask every single person who wants to be a Christian to, go through 6 years of academic study.
Right. But that's kind of what I'm getting at is do you really think it's reasonable for, average everyday people to put in this much work to dissect the historical context and the translations and the this and the that of this ancient, this Iron Age, sex manual? Or do you think that it's better that maybe we just kind of do away with that and focus on things that like the morality of our culture today is not derived from the Bible. It's derived from logic and reason and argumentation and the blending of cultures. So, why not just encourage people to be good people and participate in the society that they're in and adopt universal principles of morality rather than saying, here's this book, and you should explore this book because it'll make you a better person. Just don't read these parts. And when you do read these parts, remember these certain things. And when you get to this section, you need to go find a Bible scholar, and he's going to tell you what to do with it. Don't you think it's a little easier just to, do away with this outdated technology?
So I think if someone's not interested in a spiritual component to their life, and they're simply looking for a simple moral code to live by, there are some great philosophical viewpoints, even if they even wanted to go a step further than just figuring out for themselves. There's some great philosophers from history that have come up with some great ways to live. But I think if you're talking about spirituality, which having a spiritual component to your life in any form or fashion is very beneficial.
Then reference needed.
I would debate that with you, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail. Please finish what you were saying.
If Jesus is somebody that you want to follow spiritually, then I would say the Bible is still very important.
I guess I'm a little curious because you're mentioning that I guess if you want to follow Jesus, the Bible probably matters. But it's sort of like saying if you want to follow Jesus, then read about Jesus. Okay, great. Why is this better than any other kind of spirituality if you want one? You kind of threw a passing reference into the Quran, but I don't really see why studying the Bible and being a Christian is somehow superior, at least from anything you've said. You've basically said the Bible's useful. A lot of things can be useful. They're not necessarily good things. If I break my ankle, it can be useful because then I start working out and all of my joint muscles become better after that to rehab my ankle. Sucked that I broke my ankle, though. So I don't know. I guess I have two questions. One being, why is this superior to any other kind of spirituality? And the other being, you've said this is useful. Why? How is it uniquely useful?
Okay. So, I'll preface this with, I'm still learning.
We all are.
I through my studies, there's a French polymath. His name is René Girard. Have you guys heard of him?
It sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. I'm here on this show. I don't have anything in front of me.
I do love you dropping the word polymath, though. That's a good word.
That's a very good word.
Yeah.
So he in the late 20th century, he was working on this idea that he coined mimetic theory, and out of it he kind of built this theory of religion, which focused on violence of humans in communities, and specifically sacrificial violence, and kind of how that built religion. And he outlines this idea that when communities are in conflict, the way that they resolve that conflict and unify is creating a scapegoat in the community, and killing them is a way to appease that kind of appease the conflict. And so he went back and he's seeing that this theory or this kind of outline is all across myth and stories of across human history, and that he got to the Bible and specifically the Passion narrative. Mm-hmm. And in all of the myths leading up to this, it's always either there was two victims that he saw. There was the kind of just the sacrificial victim, one who's convinced that they deserve this, and so they willingly go. Think of like kind of, I'm not 100% sure this is fact, but I'll just use the example because I've heard it. Like how people would line up to be sacrificed in ancient South American communities. And then the other type of victim was the retributive victim, which we see in Judaism, right? Where it's, no, I don't deserve this. And in fact, you guys are the ones that deserve to be sacrificed or to be killed. And they demand justice and retribution. And when we get to Jesus, he breaks that all down when he's on the cross and forgives his enemies.
Is the premise here then that Christianity is uniquely useful because the scapegoat was a perfect person? Is that kind of the idea here?
That he was the forgiving victim.
Okay, but
that he breaks the cycle of violence, but he kind of tears down this.
Sorry to interrupt. You can't really say that Christianity broke a cycle of violence or broke a need for scapegoats and sacrificial victims. It was only in, I believe it was the 1970s with Vatican II, that the Catholic Church finally said we don't blame all Jewish people for the crucifixion of Jesus. It kind of feels like if we look at this historically, which I think we should, that he doesn't break down the cycle of violence. He just provides a different kind of justification.
Yeah, I also want to throw out there, like you mentioned that like this is unique because Jesus sacrificed himself. He's not unique in doing that. I just Googled list of gods that sacrificed themselves, and the first one here is in Aztec mythology, Nanahuatzin sacrificed himself. He was the most humble of all gods who sacrificed himself in fire so that the earth would continue to have the sun, and then he became the sun god in doing so. And then here's a Reddit thread that mentions Prometheus, which is one of my favorite literary characters, and right away Prometheus was crucified and tortured for all eternity because he gave people hope and fire and things like this. And so like it's not a unique doctrine to say, okay, this guy sacrificed himself versus this person was sacrificing, and now here's this person giving himself and he becomes a god in doing so. Like these are, yes, themes of sacrifice do surround religious tradition, sure, but like the Jesus story at face value is not unique at all. And also it's not necessary anymore because we no longer have that mindset that we used to have when we were hunter-gatherers or early civilization. We're like, well, I have to give all this stuff, sacrifice this stuff in order to get the sun to rise tomorrow. Now we can like function in more civilized ways. So like, I don't think that your narrative here about like the uniqueness or the specialness or whatever of this passion model are either useful for society or give any credibility to the religion at all.
I guess also on that. Sorry.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Just on the theme of self-sacrifice, moms throughout history have sacrificed quite a bit, even to just reproduce the first time. All of these examples are male, which is, history is what it is. Mm-hmm. But putting it out there, the idea of being self-sacrificial, throw just female existence in there.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And yeah, I'm not claiming that self-sacrifice was the idea of self-sacrifice was created with Jesus' death. Obviously, self-sacrifice has probably been going on since humans, since we transitioned into Homo sapiens. But
not even us. There's other species that do it too.
Or other species even. I'm sure. Yes. And so, I think what it's more specific than just self-sacrifice. I think the context of kind of leading up to Jesus' death, who people depending on what gospel you read, I guess it varies a bit, but kind of who people saw him as, who he alluded or claimed to be, who and what he was teaching, all of that taking place in Jewish community and the context of their beliefs. It's much more about the fact that Jesus is breaking down these walls of religious violence that permeate communities all throughout history and still do. Like you said, yes, Christianity is no different. And that's the ironic part, right, is that when the way, right, became institutionalized into a religion, it did the same thing that religion has done across the world forever. And
so, Tommy, really quickly, we've been going for about 16 minutes now, and we've got a few other callers, so I want to move on. But I do want to ask you very quickly before, just without, I don't think this requires a history context. It's just asking you personally. Over the course of this call, we've mentioned the fact that the Bible is corrupted, infallible, and has a whole bunch of bad stuff in it. We've mentioned the fact that Christianity as a whole is corrupted, infallible, and has a whole bunch of bad stuff in it. We've mentioned that humans are humans, and that we do good and bad things, and that no part of this doctrine is unique. I've been trying to press over and over about, what is the actual usefulness of this whole thing? And so that's kind of where I'd like to land now at the very end of the call, is just to ask, the whole point of society moving forward is that we do away with things that aren't useful anymore, things that are outdated, things that are getting in the way of progress. Even if they have a little bit of good to them, maybe we can save it a little bit of that good. There's not a single thing that a religious person, Christian, Muslim, whatever, can do or can say that is good that an atheist also couldn't do or say that's good. But I can give you a laundry list of things that religious people have done and would do that are evil that an atheist would never do for these reasons. So, at the end of the call, I just want to know, again, why do we need this? Why is this useful? If it isn't true, then shouldn't it be done away with? And if you think it is true, if you think that this story of Jesus is a real thing, still, why do we need this particular doctrine, this particular structure, this particular way of life, this particular religion? Why is this thing right here the actual only way to do it?
So I would say that the example that Jesus sets in the Gospels and the teachings that he gives us of forgiving our enemies, or loving our enemies, and forgiveness and compassion, and not having these imaginary borders between people, that we're all brothers and sisters and we're all children of the Father. That idea is something I think is very profound, and I think it's something that's missing from the world, especially right now.
But isn't there a way to
I
teach
think
those kind of information, those kind of ideals, without the baggage of Christianity? Like Sofia and I are good people, I like to think.
Yeah, well.
We work pretty hard to make the world a better place.
Sorry.
I can speak from myself. I dedicate my entire career to trying to make the world a little bit less shitty than it was when I got here. Donate a lot to charity, raise a lot of money, try to help people where I can, give a sandwich to a homeless guy. And I don't believe in any of this. So can't we all adopt those ideals without the additional baggage of Christianity? Isn't that possible or useful? I mean, flip, dude. Santa Claus teaches all the same things that you just taught. Be good, be kind. We're all brothers and sisters.
Of course it is. And you know, I think there are a lot of people in this world that are a lot more Christian than a lot of Christians are. I think that, yeah, if someone, like I said towards the beginning of the call, if someone's not interested in a spiritual component to their life, and really they're not looking to kind of tie this into maybe some bigger picture that, only be really subjective and in their own head, that I would still say, sure, an atheist living by the principles of forgiveness and compassion and not making enemies and self-sacrifice will be awesome.
I feel like we're kind of going around in circles here because we're like, why is it unique to this? Why not drop all of the other things that come with what has become this, what we all agree is a corrupt religion, and just live this way? And you're like, yeah, but then also spirituality. And we're like, you can get spirituality from somewhere else. And then we kind of keep going into this. We're having the same conversation sort of over and over.
Yeah.
I would really encourage you. I used to be, I'm hitting stuff. I used to be very religious. I ran a Bible study at my school. I thought I was going to be a missionary, all this stuff, right? And for me, it was really helpful in these sorts of discussions to write my premise out first and test that. I feel like you have a lot of sort of premises here, things you can say, okay, the Bible is a uniquely good way to accomplish these goals. Test that theory. That's something you can do, like Google, or like I just called you Google, like Forrest just did, with the Google box.
I'll take that as a compliment.
All right. Yes, Mr. Google here. It's something that you can kind of do on your own. And not to say that we wouldn't want to talk to you again, because absolutely we would. I feel like you're on this really interesting intellectual journey. I feel like you're really smart. And I do want to know where this goes for you. But I also feel like some of this, I think you can push your own thinking here. And I'm excited to see where that would lead you if you just start testing your own ideas a little bit.
Definitely.
Okay, yeah. And I appreciate you guys talking.
Hey, thanks so much, Tom.
Yeah,
We
thanks for
appreciate
calling.
you. Have an awesome rest of your day, man. Take care.